Happy Sunday, everybody, and welcome to another Arkansas football recruiting report. As always, that's Otis Kirk. I'm Jacob Morris. And Otis, we've, for now, kind of gotten through the portal madness. So today we're going to recap it a little bit, talk about where the Hogs improved at each position as it stands on 24/7. It depends on the
Yeah,
service you look at, but Arkansas, with the 15th ranked portal class in the country, obviously there was a lot of spots that Arkansas was looking to shore up. That's going to be the case when you have 30 plus departures in the portal.
yeah,
Arkansas, one of only two Power Five teams to have that, but tried to flood in some help as best they could, and we're going to kind of go position group by position group here. We'll
yeah.
start on the offensive line. Arkansas needed some help with, Josh Braun as well as Addison Nichols and more heading for the portal. Where do you feel that Arkansas improved the most in the regard in the trenches there?
Okay, the offensive line is my number one unit that I think where Arkansas helped themselves. And we're going to cheat a little bit today, but we can do that because it's our show. I'm going, I'm going to include the three junior college kids is
Okay.
where I'm talking about, Jake. And it doesn't make that much difference on the offensive line, but it will at tight end and in the secondary. But on the offensive line, yeah, I think the number one player they signed was Corey Robinson from Georgia Tech. And he will be a tackle. Jaquan McCroy is going to from Oregon is going to be a tackle. Now you get into the trickier spots of Bubba Craig from junior college. Of course, there's not really a tricky spot with Caden Kittler. He's going to be a center. But Kavion Broussard is where you kind of get into a little bit. He's going to probably be a guard, capable playing. All of these guys are capable. Bubba, Kavion, and Marcus Dummerville are all capable of playing tackle. But I think those guys may be looked at guard too early on. I think Broussard definitely will be looked at as a guard, and he could make an impact there. But it depends on what all they've done with some players because you've got returning players too, like
Yeah.
Marion Harris and stuff. So you got to figure that into the equation as well. But I do think they've really helped themselves. You know, you've got Fernando Carmona, one of the top returning players on the team at any position, coming back at left tackle. So you figure probably Corey Robinson will plug in at right tackle. McCoy probably be the top backup at the tackles, and that's assuming Mario moves inside, which I think he will. But I think they really helped themselves there on the offensive line, Jacob, more than anywhere else. Caden Kittler has got experience starting at center at UCF. Just
Yeah.
great pick. I thought he's going to Florida State. I really did.
Mm.
And the Hogs got him. But that'd be my position. And I get this question a lot. That's why we're doing this today because I've had 4 or 5 people asking this week. We're getting names. We get that. You and the other recruiting guys give us names, but where are they really? What impact and where are they helping themselves most? So that's why I'm kind of doing this because I figure 4 or 5 people are asking me this around town, then other people are interested in it too. But without a doubt, offensive line to me has been the number one spot that they've improved and well, helped themselves. I shouldn't say improved because you're losing 3 or 4 starters from last year. So we'll see if it's an improvement over last year. But I do think that's where Arkansas needed a lot of help and they got a lot of help. But I do think they've improved. I don't think they had a second tackle last year anywhere close to Corey Robinson. I'm gonna be honest with you. I really don't. I mean, Cremona is Cremona, but as far as after him, you saw various people start there, and I don't think any of them matched Corey Robinson. Now, I do like Amarian Harris a lot, but I like him more probably as a guard. And then, but he's going to play wherever. And but Corey Robinson really, I just keep repeating that, but I mean, he's a stud. I mean, that was the biggest pickup in my opinion in the portal.
Yeah, yeah, no, I just remember the way that you talked, just how surprised you were, not that Arkansas got him, but just about the quality of the pickup, and it makes
Yeah,
sense, and it seems like a good fit to slot over
yeah,
into that tackle position.
well,
Similar in a lot of ways to how you were describing the offensive line is the secondary, right? Where that was an area where your alarm bells went off because of the departures for Arkansas. You lose Jalen Braxton, you lose
yeah,
the Metcalfs, and all of a sudden, talking about replacing not only important pieces, but starters and foundations of the
yeah.
defense. So in the secondary, Arkansas, they spread a wide net and they roped in a lot of players there as well.
Yeah, and let's start with Keyshawn DeVito, the kid from
Yeah.
junior college, the number 2 JUCO cornerback in the country. I asked the coach one day, I'm not gonna say what he said, but I asked one of the assistant coaches one day, I said, "Do you think the Arkansas maybe signed their cornerbacks when they signed Keyshawn Davila and Mark and Kanai Walker on the same day? And I mean, I really think that's possible, Jacob. And I will say this: no one completely thought I was crazy asking that question. I'll answer it that way as far as giving away what some people said, but nobody thought I was completely nuts for asking that. And so I don't know. Can I Walker, man? 6'2", 206. I mean, just a big kid. I thought he was safety when I saw him. He looked like a safety, but no, he's a corner. But then, as you mentioned, TJ Metcalf, Tevis Metcalf, the Nico Slaughters, that
Hmm.
eligibility's up. So you got to
Yeah.
have some people on the back end. And that's where I think Caleb Wooden from Auburn
Yes.
really comes in. He started at free safety for Auburn. I think Quintavious Scandrick is another kid from Eastern Michigan that people don't know that much about. But when I saw him, my words were kind of like it was with Kanai Walker. That's what a defensive back's supposed to
Mhm.
look like.
Yeah.
Scandrick is a big kid. He's listed at 6'2", 200. Hey, if they'd listed him at 6'3", it would not have passed. I would not have questioned it. Let me put it that way, Jake. That's a big kid and a big player. And Scandrick and Caleb Wooden there at the safeties. I like them a lot. And then a guy that kind of reminds me a little bit of Danico Slaughter in the sense that he's kind of a jack of all trades
Mm.
is the player Jordan Young from
Hmm.
Cincinnati.
Yeah.
He kind of like Slaughter. He played a corner, but he could play anywhere. And I don't think he'll play corner here. I think Jordan will probably end up at. I think he may very well be the hog replacement
Yes.
because remember, Danico Slaughter was the backup. I mean, was the starting hog, but his backup was Tevis Metcalf much of the season,
Hmm.
and they're both gone. So I think Jordan Young may switch there. He's 6 foot 197, can play any of the positions back there in the secondary. And he told me he doesn't really care where he plays. He said, I'm not coming to Arkansas based on being a cornerback or require. That's not a requirement. So he's willing to play. He's willing and capable of playing anywhere in the secondary. And I think between some of the guys they've got coming back at corner, whether it's Kanai Walker and Keyshawn Deville start or not, that's debatable. But whether they do or not, they've got some other guys coming back there but I do think they will be in the mix. But I really like the young kid. He just Jordan Young. He can play.
Yeah.
And then of course we talked about Caleb Wooden just being a true free safety. Uh, I think they'll plug him in for T.J. Metcalf and so you're getting when you talk about Jordan Young, Keyshawn Davila, Kanai Walker, and Jordan Young and Caleb Gordon, you're talking about four pieces for the secondary, and I think they all make a big impact. All four of those guys will. I don't think it seems like Scandrick. Yeah, I'm leaving him. I
Yeah.
knew I was leaving somebody. Scandrick. So all five of those kids will make a big impact back there in the secondary. I think Scandrick could be the other safety. It wouldn't surprise me if you ended up with those 5 guys I just talked about being starters back there. I know the guys coming back will have something to say about that and some of the incoming freshmen, but I do think Kanai Walker, Keyshawn DeVille at the corner, Skendrick and Wooden at safeties, and then Jordan Young at the band, a hog. I think that's a possibility, but they're starting secondary. Not saying it will be, but I think it's a possibility.
Yeah, it's something we were talking about just in terms of spring practice is always fun because you're
Right.
just excited for football to start again, right? But specifically in the secondary, that's where I know I know a lot of people are going to be paying a lot of attention, and
Yeah.
not only that, but the jump then from when we get access again in the fall in August, right, where you're going to see where some of these guys just are in terms of one-on-ones and everything else, and you'll start to see it kind of take form because right now we really have no idea, and that's a tough spot for Arkansas to be in, but you're going to get to see an up close
Well,
just battle between these guys for the positions. And I think that's going to be really interesting in spring to see these
yeah.
guys going at it and where they potentially might fit in.
Yeah, and I think Selwyn Bridges, Jaheim
Yeah.
Singletary, some of those guys are not
Yes.
just gonna roll over and say,
Nope.
"Hey, these guys are new and Otis Kirk thinks they may start." I don't think those guys are gonna roll over. But that's good because now all those guys, last year Selman Bridges knew he wasn't starting, Jacob.
Hmm.
Now he's got to look out there and see, hey, there's a path for me to play, and all of them. Jaheim, of course, he started and played a lot, but now there's a path for all those kids to possibly play and or start certainly play, and definitely all of them probably got a chance to start all of them. So
Yeah.
that's what's going to make that dang on the character in the spring so much fun to watch it because they're going to be out there with a realistic chance to not just play but start. I think all of them.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be interesting because, like I said, the players coming back are not going to roll over and play dead just because these
No.
guys are new. So it's going to be that's what makes it fun though, is because there is going to be competition, and competition makes everybody better. Whether no matter who starts, competition makes all these guys better. And I do think Arkansas, to add one other thing, I think they're finished on the O line, but I do think they'll add another defensive back or two in the spring portal opening. Right now I think they will, but then again, a lot of it may depend on spring practice and a few offensive linemen left. They might not be finished there, so you can never say they're finished. But it would not surprise. My understanding is they're still looking in the portal for maybe one more defensive back, be it a safety, be it a corner, be it
Mhm.
somebody like Jordan Young can play it all.
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
they like getting those guys. That when they go slaughter Georgia, the guys that can play anywhere you need them, you know. And Tavis Metcalf was that way to a degree.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think that's it's a great priority to have in the portal, especially in a crowded room, right? When
Mhm.
you bring in guys that can slot it anywhere, because not only can that guy take over a position,
Yeah.
right, but just from a depth perspective, the ability to have an experienced guy that understands how to play every position in the defense, that only makes you better. And the other thing too, with you don't have to love it; it's the new nature of college football. But if you want a hint on who's winning battles, just watch the spring portal window and you might see a couple DBs go out the door for Arkansas. And
Yeah, that
that'll give you a hint on who's probably winning those battles. It
Yeah,
just is what it is.
that's always possible, boy. And I mean, when they do that, everything changes.
Yeah.
It could go up to maybe two defensive backs they want out of the portal in, or it could go up to two another offensive lineman. So I'd never say they're finished somewhere,
Mhm.
not even at quarterback. Because I mean, what if two of these kids decide at the end
Yeah.
of spring they're going to leave? I mean, I don't think they will, but what if they did? I mean, so you never say never on this portal stuff
No.
because it's always seemingly just a revolving door. I mean, it's kind of like that's kind of what we've gotten. That's what it is nowadays. To be honest with you,
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a shorter window. It's a 1 week window in the
right?
spring, and that'll it'll be all open
I
again, and
love
we'll
those
see
short
where that
windows in the
goes.
portal. I
Yeah.
love those, Jacob.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
I'm
fewer
sure you
trips
do.
at 5 a.m., man. I love those short windows. You said the magic words.
1 week, 1 week. That's all we got you for there, Otis. But another position I think that shows just the I would say absurd nature of this of the transfer portal would be tight end for Arkansas.
Yeah,
Obviously, you see Luke has, he heads to Ole Miss. Varkey's gums, Ty Washington out the door for various reasons as well. So Arkansas dips into the portal and gets a couple quality tight ends there as well.
yeah. I think they did really well, especially when you throw in Jeremiah Beck,
Yep.
who I talked about through half the show last week, as soon as we got off Rohan Jones signed with the Hogs. So I felt like an idiot, man. But I mean, Beck was legit because they offered him on Saturday. I mean, I knew they were in on Rohan Jones, but I had not heard that. I'd not heard any update recently on him. It was hard to get information on him. I knew they were in on him, but by them offering back and moving on back so late, I thought, well, they probably lost Rohan, so I didn't bring him up. But he was a legit. Oh, they wanted him bad,
Mhm.
but Rohan Jones from Montana State, 6'3", 235, and back is 6'4", 240. What I like about them, they're receiving tight ends, more like a Luke has. Then you go to Jaden Platt,
Yeah.
6'5", 260. Not,
Big.
and that doesn't mean by any stretch. Jaden will probably fume when you say he's a blocking tight end, but no, he can catch the football. He's athletic, very athletic. In fact, he can do a backward flip. But he's very athletic, and I may be mixing him up. I think he's the one they said vertical's 40 inches. So he's a heck of an athlete. They beat Florida State and others to get
Yeah.
Jaden. The thing about him is Morgan Turner had him committed to Stanford. Bobby Petrino coached him in 2023. So they didn't get something without. He only had like 3 catches in 2 years. People said, well, hey, they knew what they were getting because Morgan Turner recruited him in high school. But Bobby Petrino coached him for a year, so they know what they're getting and they like it, obviously. But Jaden Platt was a 6'5", 260. He's a great pickup. But I like the versatility they got it tied in because you got Beck. Because for a while it seemed like with the returning guy, it seemed like other than Maddox Lassiter, they were getting bigger tight ends and just all bigger. And you want
Mhm.
some guys maybe that can stretch the field, and that's where Rohan Jones and Jeremiah Beck come in. So I like the tight end. I really like. I didn't. I liked it with Platt, but I love it now with the last weekend. They really helped themselves there, Jake. That's where they got really helped themselves. And like I said, we're cheating a little bit. We're putting back in with this. But hey, like I said, it's our show. We can do what we want. But I do think you're putting in junior college. It's not the portal, but it is new additions. and they're older guys who are expected to play. When you go to junior college, you're not really going. You may be going for depth, but you're really going for somebody that's got a potential to play, or certainly play. But I mean, potentially start. And I think it's the same way with the portal. But they got 3 players out of the portal, and I like that. Plus, you've got the guy we had on here, Gavin
Hmm.
Garrison, the tight end from California high school, big kid, 6'7", 240. Gavin, Gavin made a point when he was on this show. I don't remember if you were the host that day or not, but he made a point that yeah, he's big and he can block, but he can also catch the ball. And he and Platt both want to emphasize they can catch football.
Yeah.
But what I mean is by their size, they're obviously good blockers. And Sam Pittman's offense wants a good blocker at tight end. They just want that.
Yeah.
And so Gavin Garrison is in that mix. There's 4 new tight ends coming in, and they needed 4.
Hmm.
People questioned me on X the other day about how many tight ends are they wanting? But man, you look at what they lost. You named them: Luke, Ty was Washington, Barkeys. You lost 3, and you were 1 short in that room anyway. They felt like they were 1 short to start with, so it's natural you bring in 4, and now you're back at the numbers because then you bring in those 4. You got Andrews Paskey, and I may be blowing his name, and then Maddox Lassiter. So you got 6 guys there. So you're sitting pretty good on numbers in that room, and you need those guys because that's one position where they will play. It's not like quarterback; they'll play 2 or 3 tight ends at a time with certain alignments. Certainly 2 tight ends. There are alignments where they might play 3, but Bobby, there's certainly plenty of alignments where they'll play 2 tight ends. So I like that, Jake. I think they needed all these guys. If all 4 of the newcomers, counting Garrison, and I think they did well there. And getting Rohan Jones was really huge. That kid's good. I mean, he had when he went in the portal, he started out in Maine, went to Montana State, and this time he had everybody in the country recruiting him
Hmm.
that needed a tight end, and he chose the hog. Morgan Turner really got to be feeling good about himself because nobody helped themselves more in the last month or last 2 or 3 weeks than Morgan Turner.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tight end such as interesting just because what
Yeah,
Arkansas had
yeah.
obviously in terms of an exodus there. And I thought it was really interesting just from the standpoint that I saw a couple people, talking about Platt's lack of production at Texas A&M, and yet it's with him, it's a projection of what he can be in
And
terms of, Arkansas has a ton of really good pickups, but if, you head to 24/7 and you scroll down Arkansas's portal group, who is the top rated guy that they got? It is Jaden Platt, believe it or not. So it's a projection of what he
well,
could be, and that's not to say that
well,
he's gonna come in and be Luke has, because Luke has the potential and really has been one of the better tight ends in the entire country. That just you can't sugarcoat that. That is what it is.
well,
Go ahead.
no, I'm just gonna say I've had people tell me, well, there's no Luke Has in the group. No, there's
There's
not.
not. You
And,
you can't
how
no,
many Luke Hases in the country
no.
are there?
There's no
There's not
replacing
very
that.
many. I love Luke Has, man. He and TJ Metcalf were the 2 players they lost that made me sick.
Yeah.
I mean, I love both those players.
Yeah.
Uh, but but you got to look at Platt. He's not Luke Hadden, but he can block better than Luke. Plus, he's more athletic. You can't go by his stats at A&M. He didn't have many chances to play there, and for various things, he's going to get a chance at Arkansas. And look, I'm telling you, they rave about his athleticism. They absolutely rave about his everybody that knows him raves about his athleticism, and that kid's good. And yeah, yeah, he's not Luke Has, but so what? They're not very many people are. There's a
Yeah.
lot of teams can go through the roster tight end. We don't have a Luke Has. Yeah, they're right. They don't. But big deal. There's only one Luke Has. But Arkansas did well there. They did as well as you could expect. Losing Luke hurt.
Yeah.
Nope, there's no sugarcoating that. Not trying to sugarcoat. But you don't have him. You got to move on. And I think Arkansas did as well as they could.
Yeah, yeah. Rohan Jones, I'm partial to him because my brother went to Montana State. So I watched a lot of Montana State football this year for just
Yeah.
they were the top ranked team in the FCS for the whole season. Fell short,
What'd you
lost to
think
North.
about him? What'd you think about him?
Well, he played well. He's a receiving tight end, like you said, and he was
Right.
their quarterback. Tommy Mellott was this really fun dual threat guy who won the FCS Heisman, and so he was kind of a safety valve in a lot of ways for Tommy. And it was just Montana State. It was tough. They lost to North Dakota State. The title drought since 1984 continues for the Bobcats, but I texted my brother right away. I said we got somebody from Bozeman coming to Fayetteville, so that's gonna be a lot of fun for me. I'm excited
Yeah.
to talk to him once he gets here. And again, you're never gonna replace Luke Has. You're just not. But Arkansas did a good job of shoring up that position.
Exactly.
The
That's my
last
point. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. I'm just telling
yeah,
you, you don't get a Lucas because there's not very many of those.
no,
They don't grow on trees, but
no,
you do as well as you can. Probably better than could be expected. Certainly better than it looked maybe 2 weeks ago when they only had Jaden Platt and Gavin Garrison, and it was looking a little bleak. The portal's winding down, and all of a sudden Jones and Beck, bang, you're back to five. Or
yeah,
four in the class. Four.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, last position group we're going to talk about here, and one that Arkansas added name after name after name because they needed to with the departures. More graduation here. I guess Isaiah Satania and Desmond James did hit
Mhm.
the portal, but a lot of guys graduating with Andrew Armstrong and Isaac Slaw heading for the door. So wide receiver, the last position group we're going to talk about, and Arkansas not only got a lot of names, Otis, but got a lot of different types of receivers as well. You've got
Yeah.
yards after catch guys, think Omega Blake. You've got physical guys. You've got all different types of receivers coming to Fayetteville.
The guy that nobody talks about is Courtney Crutchfield. Let me
Yes.
tell you, I saw this kid. I'd have to ask Courtney if it was the eighth or ninth grade. He was in a 7-on-7. I've told this story on here. In fact, I was on here the day I was at Benton watching that 7-on-7. I was on this show raving about a kid, a young kid, and I said one day I bet he's a Razorback, and it looked like he might not be, but
Yeah.
he, but Courtney Crutchfield is six. And look, people don't understand. This is the MVP of the state basketball championship. He led Pine Bluff.
Athletic.
Great. We talking about athleticism, but
Mhm.
there again, I'm gonna tell you, Ronnie Fouch helped himself at the end a lot like Morgan Turner did. Nothing against Ken Talley, who I think will be certainly the punt returner and was first team All America there. So you'd have to say they got no worse there with him against Satana,
Mhm.
who I love Isaiah, but I mean Kent Talley can hold his own there. He caught a touchdown pass against Arkansas this year. I not Kent Talley. I'm sorry, Cam Shanks. I
Yeah, I was
think
gonna
I
say I
said
was like,
Kent
what?
Talley. Oh my God, Kent Talley's defensive end. Now Kent Talley's not going to catch any pass. Cam Shanks, punt returner. I'm sorry, I went blank for a minute, Jacob. But Cam Shanks, punt returner, caught a 15-yard touchdown pass with his team against UAB against Arkansas.
Mhm.
But I like him. He's fast. And then I think you got Raylan Sharp, who there again, it goes back to Fouch and Bobby knew him. They had him. In fact, he was running track at Houston, and those two found him. Bobby and he told me. He said the reason I'm a football player is because of Bobby Petrino and Ronnie Fouch. He said I wouldn't even be a football player
Yeah.
without them. He was at track at Houston, and they saw something. They remembered him. I know Bobby. I believe he was. I may be wrong on this, but I believe Bobby saw him play as a quarterback at Allen High School and remembered how athletic he was, Jacob,
Mhm.
and recruited him. Saw saw he was at Houston and thought, man, we can get him to Missouri State, and they did. And he had like 70 something catches his last
Yeah.
year there before he went to Presto for a year. But I like running track. But that last week or so, they pulled in Courtney Crutchfield and Omega Blake, which completely changed the room. And then the last Ishmael Sissy from Stanford. And I'm
Mhm.
gonna tell you, here's a kid that's 6 foot 180, could squat 550 pounds. I mean, he's unreal how strong that kid is. And he's smart coming from Stanford. He's smart. But I'm gonna tell you, the kid I love in that group is Courtney Crutchfield. And
Yeah.
people come back at me and say he didn't catch a pass at Missouri. Like, look, they had Luther
It,
Burden,
yeah.
Weeze. They had some pretty
They
good receivers up there. It's not like he was
yes.
like playing behind
No.
me,
There
playing
was
behind people like me.
yeah.
He had Luther Burden and Theo Weiss and some pretty good players at Missouri he was playing behind. But I think he could have played if they'd have needed him if one of those guys got hurt. But I'm going to tell you, you'll never convince me that Courtney Crutchfield's not a stud. I mean, I think that kid, I love the kid. I've known him. We stayed in contact with each other
Mhm.
since I saw him at that 7-on-7. He was either going into the ninth grade or going into the 10th grade. I want to say he was going into the ninth grade. I'll ask him and update that sometime. But my point is, I saw him when he was young. It's that 7-on-7, Jacob. Here's the deal. They went down, he caught a touchdown pass. The other team is from Texas. I don't remember where they're from, maybe the Dallas, Houston area. They're driving for the winning touchdown. And what does Courtney do? He intercepts a pass and wins the game for him. He just got a touchdown pass to put him ahead, then intercepts a pass to keep him beating them. I love, and that was a young kid doing that. He's
Mhm.
playing. in the senior high division, I love Courtney Crutchfield. He's a winner. He won the state basketball championship. And I'm going to tell you what, I love Corey Robinson and Jaden, Jaden Platt, everybody in this class, even Ken Talley. I'm getting him some free pop. I love all these kids, but I tell you, Courtney Crutchfield, I've just got a special place. I just think he's going to be special for the Razorbacks. I'm proud he came back to Arkansas. I know we're supposed to be neutral on that stuff, but I'm not with Courtney.
Yeah.
I'm glad he's back in Arkansas, and I think he's going to really help. And I'm not just saying that. I really think he's going to be a difference maker at receiver for the Hogs. And I forget that stuff about what he did at Missouri because, like I said, you and I know who they had out
Mhm.
there. Besides that, he was a true freshman. In this day and age of true freshmen, I mean, I think Charlie Collins, Kavion Henderson, and some of those are really good players, but they were freshmen. And
Yep.
with the portal days now, a lot of true freshmen kind of get lost in the shuffle, out there. Then it wasn't so much that at Missouri, it's the fact that they had all these return. They had some other player receivers too, but those were two studs that they had out there at receiver. I mean, Missouri probably has good 1-2 punch at receivers than anybody in the SEC.
Yeah, like just to demonstrate. First of all, I think people remember, just how the overall, to put it lightly, outward frustration from Arkansas fans that you were losing an in-state kid like that. So that's the first part of it. But everybody says, "Oh, well, he didn't do anything up there," and you're going up against two of the better wide receivers in the entire country.
Yeah,
So
probably
that's
the best
that's
one
why,
too in the
yeah,
SEC.
that's why he didn't get on the field. But like, I'll ask you this, Otis. I don't know if you know off the top of your head. Like, when's the last top 50 offensive guy, top 50 national recruit offensive guy that Arkansas has gotten? Do you remember, like off the top of your head?
Top 50 offense. I don't think Luke was top 50,
No, he
was he?
wasn't. So and
Okay.
so my point with this is not to, give you a trivia question. My point is you had to think about that, right? And
Yeah,
so,
right. Oh, yeah,
right,
definitely.
and so all of a sudden, you say, "Oh, well, Courtney Crutchfield, he didn't really do much in Missouri last year." It in the class of 24/7, I think he was the 43rd overall guy in the
Yeah,
country.
well,
That means he's 11 spots away from being a 5-star. It doesn't matter if
right.
he doesn't live up to all that. I'm just saying that's why you stay in touch with guys like this, because if you have an opportunity to bring them back, if that type of talent is there just because he didn't produce as a true freshman, outside of Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams, not many true freshman wide receivers are producing much, especially if they're
Exactly.
behind Theo Weiss and Luther Burden. He's really
I'm gonna tell
exciting, and I think he'll thrive if he's given the opportunity.
you, the 2024 class, people were down on it then. What would they have thought had Courtney Crutchfield and Jaquan McCroy had signed with Arkansas?
Two top
Hey,
100
you look
kids.
at that class completely different. If,
Yeah.
if those two kids right there, just those two, you get who you got, but you get those two kids, McCroy and Crutchfield. You add them to that class, and now they're at Arkansas.
Yep.
And those were two really good players that I'm gonna tell you, that was probably the two kids that, honestly, that I hated for them to lose the most.
Yeah.
Crutchfield personal, and then McCroy just because he's absolute stud. And he may not start this year because they've got Cremona and they've got Corey Robinson. But look, if one of those guys, and we know injuries happen, they happen all the time. If one of those guys gets hurt, McCroy can step right in. But I just know both those were high 4-star recruits, and if they'd have gotten those kids last year, the whole class would have looked different.
Mhm.
It'd have been ranked different, Jacob, not just perception, but it would have been ranked different if
Yeah.
they'd have gotten Crutchfield and McCroy.
Yeah, yeah, and I just think it's we very quickly forget where these,
Yeah.
right, just because somebody didn't get on the field as a true freshman. This was a top 50 guy. Again, 11 spots away. You can whatever pick your recruiting service, but on 24/7, 11 spots away. There's 32 5-stars every single year, and that's where Courtney Crutchfield was. I also think the interesting thing, because I was going back and looking through, I was like, man, who were the Arkansas kids last year coming out, right? And there's always a large conversation and topic about, and I'm just shifting the conversation here, so I apologize, but there's always a large topic and conversation and talking point about there needs to be a bigger priority on Arkansas kids. I think it is specifically interesting now when you get Crutchfield back into the fold and you look at that class of 2024 and the guys that Arkansas held on to. There's a chance, maybe not this year, but the year after and the year after that, that you're looking at the core of this team being Arkansas kids. And I think that's really, really exciting because you talk about Crutchfield at wide receiver. Braylon Russell, through it all, appears to be
Yeah.
coming back. That's an Arkansas kid. CJ
Love him.
Brown, still here. That's an Arkansas kid. We
Mhm.
didn't really get to see Wyatt Simmons much, but they're excited about him, the
Charlie
linebacker.
Collins.
And then Charlie Collins. And you know who else? Kobe Branham. who started in
Yeah.
that
Oh,
bowl
yeah.
game, right?
I'm
So all of a sudden,
Man,
that
they
class of
love Kobe.
2024, that's a lot of Arkansas kids and a lot to be excited about kids coming from the state playing for the Hogs and being the core of a team moving forward.
The 2026 class has a ton of
Yeah.
Arkansas offers out in it. The 2026 class does. Next week we'll try to talk about that. There's Junior Day, I think, next Saturday, so we may not get to talk. But I promise you, in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we will break down that 2026 class in Arkansas. Guys like T.J. Hodges, uh,
Mhm.
uh, all those guys. There's a kid at Cherry Valley, defensive
Danny Beal,
lineman.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, Danny Beal just got I mean, I'm not I should Evan Goodwin at PA. There's just
Mhm.
Eric Mateus went and had a cookout this week with Evan Goodwin at PA. Big, you talking about huge offensive line. Evan Goodwin is. There's just a bunch of them, and in the next week or two, and may not be. I'm not going to promise next week because we do have a junior day or Arkansas. I mean, Arkansas is junior. We do have a junior day to probably talk about on here, but in the coming weeks, I will be breaking that down because it's going to all these stuff's going to slow down for a while. And when it does, I'm going to break down that 2026. I really like that because there's two kids right here in Northwest Arkansas, one at Rogers and one at a linebacker at Rogers, a wide receiver at Bentonville, just got offered recently. So I'm going to talk about them in the next week or two. And I know we mentioned them last week, but I'm just, because we talked about a little bit about the junior day. But in the next few weeks, next 2 or 3 weeks, I will talk about that 2026 class pretty much because you brought it up about the in-state kids in
Yeah.
2024. And yeah, there I I'll tell you, TJ Hodges at Mark Tree is a guy that many people may not know. Let me tell you, there may not be a better running back in the country than him, So I'm just telling you that TJ Hodges, I don't know if Arkansas will get him or not. I'm not saying that because I think Arkansas is gonna get him. I don't know where he's going. He doesn't know, but I don't know where he's going. But I'm just telling you, he's one of the best running backs in the country, period. Anywhere.
Yeah, yeah. No, I just I looking when I was kind of looking back at Crutchfield, and I was looking through that class, and obviously there was a lot to be said about however many of the top 10 kids didn't come to Arkansas, but when you look at the core out of that class, just going into their sophomore year, I thought it was interesting to note, and I thought it was exciting moving forward about
That was a good
what
class.
potentially the Arkansas kids can do on this team. I think it's exciting and something building at least for the Razorbacks as they go into
One
2025.
One thing to keep in mind too, the kids that went out of state, Crutchfield to Missouri, Walker White to Auburn, TJ Lindsey to Auburn, they've all Walker's going to Baylor,
Baylor, yeah,
TJ's going to Purdue, Crutchfield's back at Arkansas. So I mean, you know, sometimes we got to figure out grass is not always greener on the other
yeah,
side. I know in recruiting it gets to seem like it is, but it's not. And you've got to keep that in mind. And I'm not saying they were wrong to do what they did. They did what they thought was best at the time. And now they're doing what they think. And they've certainly earned the right to do that. But I'm just saying it's interesting that all these kids that didn't come are now McCroy to Oregon, back at
hmm
Arkansas. Micah T's left A&M. I don't know where he's going, but they all hit the portal. So it's interesting. Whereas Charlie Collins, Kevion Henderson, those guys are still in Arkansas.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
Braylon Russell,
Mhm.
despite it all, he's still in Arkansas. And I hope he stays because I think Braylon Russell can be as good as Braylon Russell wants to
Yeah.
be. I think he's big time. We had Cam, we had him and we didn't have we had Cameron Settles on here, and I talked about the Arkansas Express one day with Braylon Russell and Cameron Settles at running back.
Mhm.
And I think Settles. I mean, he was the MVP of that state championship game. And a lot of people kind of overlooked him because of the other players on the team. They had so many, but but he and Ja'Cory Smith one that I didn't mention when I mentioned all the players, but he's another player in that class, linebacker 2026 that's being recruited by everybody in the country.
Yeah. No, Arkansas recruiting wise, in terms of the state, there's just I know it's up and down every single year, but it's you do a great job covering it, and there's a lot obviously to monitor with all of
On
that. But Otis, you know what I love? It's January 19th. We are about 7+ months away from kickoff for the Razorbacks, and you and I just went 36 minutes. There's never a dry moment with Arkansas recruiting. All right, we can talk,
never
and that's a wonderful thing. But I think that's a good spot to wrap it up. That's
do
gonna do it
that.
for this week's Arkansas football recruiting report. That's Otis Kirk. I'm Jacob Morris. We'll talk to you next week.